The message was only 8 words long, but by the
Caleb,
time I
I found
realized
this
I
at the
had sent it to the
hospital.
wrong woman, my entire life had
I
already
thought you
started
should
falling
be the
apart
one to
again.
have it.
I stared at my phone, feeling the blood drain from my face. "You still look beautiful when you're angry. I miss that." It was meant for a woman I had been thinking about all evening. Instead, it had gone to Rachel, the younger sister of my ex-wife, Margaret. 5 minutes later, there was a knock at my front door. Not a polite knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps that made my stomach twist. If you believe people deserve kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the biggest mistakes in our lives become the doors through which grace enters. My name is Caleb, and at 42, I had become very good at pretending I was okay. I lived alone in a small white house outside Asheville, North Carolina, the same house where Margaret and I had once planned our future. After 12 years of marriage, we had ended things quietly but painfully. There had been no affair, no dramatic betrayal, no single moment that could be blamed for everything. There had only been years of missed conversations, tired arguments, financial pressure, pride, and 2 people who loved each other, but somehow forgot how to be kind to each other. Margaret moved to another part of the state, and I stayed behind with empty rooms, old photographs, and the uncomfortable knowledge that I had played a bigger part in losing her than I wanted to admit. Rachel had always been different from her sister. She was warm, stubborn, honest, and impossible to impress. During my marriage, she had often been the person who told me when I was being an idiot, and she was usually right. After the divorce, I barely saw her. There was an unspoken boundary between us, because she was Margaret's sister, and I respected that. That night, though, I had been sitting alone at my kitchen table, scrolling through old photographs and wondering how Margaret was doing. I had recently heard that she was seeing someone. It hurt more than I expected. So I typed the message, intending to send it to a woman named Grace, someone I had been talking to casually. I was tired, lonely, and not thinking clearly. Then I pressed send. The second I saw Rachel's name underneath the message, I froze. I tried deleting it, but she had already read it. I sent 3 apologies in a row, each one more desperate than the last. I explained the mistake. I told her it wasn't what it looked like. Then I put my phone face down and paced around the kitchen like a man waiting for a verdict. 5 minutes later came the knock. When I opened the door, Rachel stood there wearing gray scrubs beneath a faded jacket, holding a cardboard box against her hip. She looked exhausted, as if she had just finished a long shift at the hospital. But her eyes were steady. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I expected anger. I expected disgust. Maybe even a slap. Instead, she looked at me with something I couldn't understand. Then she said, "Caleb, I know you sent that by mistake, but I need to tell you something before you apologize one more time." She stepped inside, and I noticed her hands were trembling slightly. She placed the box on the table and took a slow breath. She told me she had been at the hospital earlier that evening, when Margaret called her. Margaret had been having a terrible week. She had received some difficult news at work, and for the first time since the divorce, she had admitted to Rachel that she missed me. Not the arguments, not the marriage as it had become. She missed the man I used to be before disappointment turned me bitter. She missed the way I made coffee for her every Sunday morning. She missed how I used to pray beside her when life became frightening. Most of all, she missed feeling safe enough to tell me when she was hurting. I sat down because my knees suddenly felt weak. I had spent months convincing myself that Margaret had moved on and forgotten me. Meanwhile, she had apparently been carrying her own quiet grief. Rachel opened the box and pulled out a small wooden picture frame. Inside was an old photograph of Margaret and me standing beside a Christmas tree, laughing at something neither of us could remember anymore. Rachel said she had found it while helping her sister clean out a storage room. Margaret had almost thrown it away, but couldn't. Then, Rachel said something that I have never forgotten. She looked directly at me and said, That text wasn't inappropriate because you sent it to me. It was painful because it reminded me that you still love my sister, and you're both too proud to admit it. I couldn't answer. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. I told Rachel I didn't know whether Margaret would ever forgive me. I admitted that I was afraid to call because I didn't want to hear that she was happier without me. Rachel shook her head and told me that forgiveness wasn't something I could demand from Margaret. It was something I had to become worthy of receiving. She told me to stop trying to fix the past with clever words and start proving, through my actions, that I had finally learned what I should have known all along. Love isn't just about staying when things are easy. It's about listening when you're tired, apologizing when you're proud, and choosing kindness when anger would be easier. Before she left, Rachel handed me the picture frame. At the door, she paused and said, "Call her, Caleb, not because you want your marriage back. Call her because she deserves to know that the man who hurt her finally understands why she was hurting." That night, I sat alone beneath the kitchen light, staring at that photograph, for almost an hour. Then I picked up my phone and called Margaret. She answered on the fourth ring. Neither of us spoke at first. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Finally, I told her I was sorry, not for the divorce, not for the loneliness, but for every moment during our marriage when I had made her feel like her feelings were an inconvenience. I told her I didn't expect anything from her. I only wanted her to know that I finally understood. There was silence. Then Margaret began to cry. We didn't magically get back together that night. Real life doesn't work that way. We agreed to meet for coffee the following Saturday. We agreed to talk without blaming each other. Maybe it would lead to reconciliation. Maybe it wouldn't. But for the first time in years, we were no longer running away from the truth. And that accidental text, it didn't become the beginning of an affair. It became the beginning of an honest conversation. If this story touched something inside your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes people can change, and leave a comment. Sometimes one small act of kindness can reach someone standing on the edge of giving up. And before we end, comment "second chances." If you believe that genuine love isn't about being perfect, it's about being willing to grow, forgive, and become better. Because 5 minutes after I sent the wrong message, Rachel knocked on my door and said the words I desperately needed to hear. "Caleb, maybe God didn't let that message go to the wrong person. Maybe he sent it to the person who could finally help you find the right one."